Can you hear me? Oh, yes, you can. Okay, then pull it out. Yeah, and can you turn it on? Turn it on. On. Okay. Is it? Welcome. So how are you? I'm going to ask again, how are you? So, my name is Terry Kennedy. This, of course, is the fabulous Tao Pошон Lynch. Join me in welcoming Tao. Are you translating for us? Okay. So we are going to have a little conversation about Tao's life and her thinking, and then Tao will share with us some yoga. And so, first of all, Tao, thank you for being here and taking your time.
I'm very honored to be here. Is it working?
Can you hear her?
Can you hear me? I don't have a very loud voice.
Before we start, though, I want to make sure you can hear her.
Yes. Take them off. Can you hear me better now? Oh, good.
Can the people in the back hear? No. Okay. And so Tao's wisdom is so precious that we want to make sure you can hear her. So Tao just completed her autobiography, so we have so much more we can learn from her. In the United States, Dr. Deepak Chopra says that Tao is his mentor and that she embodies the spirit of yoga and is an example of ageless body, timeless mind. And isn't that what this conference is about? The Age of Happiness is about having that ageless body and timeless mind. And Tao gives us that example. And so, Tao, you were born on a ship in the middle of the English Channel. So her life started dramatically. And you grew up in Pondicherry in French India. Tell us a little bit about what you learned from your uncle who raised you.
My uncle was very, very well known. And Pondicherry at the time was where a lot of people escaped from the British and hid in Pondicherry. He also was a friend of Nehru, Prime Minister Nehru, and Mahatma Gandhi. Yes, Gandhi.
So your uncle, Tao's uncle, built the railway systems, a lot of the important railway systems in Asia and Africa. And so he knew people like Nehru and Mahatma Gandhi, Swami Vivekananda, Sri Aurobindo, all of these great sages. And so tell us a little bit about Mahatma Gandhi. How did you meet him?
Actually, I walked into my house one day and I saw a quaint-looking little man sitting on the floor and everybody bowing and touching his feet. And I thought, who is he? What is he doing? He had glasses on. And about 3 weeks later, my uncle said, you know, I want you to put together some luggage, no fancy clothes, just underwear and tops. And I'm taking you on a long journey across India. He didn't tell me what it was for or anything, but I was 8 years old. No, sorry, 8 years old was when I saw him. And I was just past that age. And we went across India to Gujarat, where they started the big walk that you all heard about, what they call the Salt Walk, that was very famous. And at that time, the British were making people pay for taxes on salt. And the salt came out of the sea. So really and truly, it wasn't necessary to pay taxes on it. It was for every one of us.
So then you were on the famous Salt March. Yes. With Mahatma Gandhi, and that's amazing to me. And so then, talk about let's fast forward, 1939. What happened?
War was started. The Germans had invaded Poland, and as I sat there, I heard my uncle talking about this war that was surely going to start, and that they were bringing the French Canadians over from Canada to be on the Maginot Line, which was put up between France and Germany to stop the Germans from invading that way.
So, okay, so World War II. Now, I'm going to pause for a second. Can you really hear Tao? In the back, some of you are saying no. Okay, may I make a change? I'm going to use my mic for you. Wait, let me take this off for a second. Can we turn this mic off, her mic?
Get it put up on this side.
Where's my sound expert?
I'm so sorry.
Yeah, I think it's better if I hold the mic for her.
Okay.
Is that all right?
You can take it off if you want.
Yes.
So
okay.
You can use this.
It's easier.
The better way. Excuse me.
Thank you.
Okay. Excuse me.
Okay, so I'm going to hold the mic. And so World War II starts. And Tao, you decide to actually go to France into the war. What prompted you to do that?
Actually, I took a boat across the Suez Canal, and I thought maybe I would get to meet my father, with the Canadians. And so I had also an aunt there who had a vineyard in the Rhone Valley. And so I went to see her because I thought that she would know more about what was happening with the war.
Now, can I stop you for a second? So Tao left India in this boat, and she was on the last passenger voyage of this boat. And then the next year, it was turned into a troop ship, and then it was torpedoed. And so you were on that last voyage. And so tell us about your aunt in France.
Well, hello? Can you hear me all right now? Okay. My aunt heard that a lot of people were coming south from Poland, and they were trying to escape the Germans. And the Germans, just after Dunkirk, invaded France, and it was cut into two different sections. The occupied zone and the southern part was called the unoccupied. But actually the Germans started to infiltrate the southern part. My aunt was giving help to a lot of Jewish people who were trying to escape, had no money, they were starving. And so what she did, she took over her wine aging cement and pocket, and she turned it into a place where she could hide people. She put big cowboys full of wine inside, one big one, and with a tap on the outside, so that when the Germans came, she would say, "Would you like a glass of wine?" And they thought that was wonderful, but they didn't know that behind the walls of this cement place, there were about between 12 and 20 people, all hiding from them. So she did a lot of help and got me involved in it. The only problem was that I was always wearing a sari, and they would look at me cross-eyed, wondering who I was and what I was doing in that part of the country.
So yes, please. So the Germans probably thought you were a spy because they couldn't quite figure you out. So I have to add context. Her aunt was 72 at this time when she was hiding Polish Jews in these wine vats. And so Tao had a good example of someone who was a little bit more mature, who was a daredevil. And so then we're going to fast forward to London. And you escaped to London, and then we'll talk a little bit.
The reason I went to London, escaped to London, frankly, was that I was helping a lot of people escape, and particularly on the Seine River. I would cover them on a potato boat and with a potato sack so that the Germans' dogs couldn't smell them. And eventually, one day, my partner got caught by them, and they were looking for me, and he wouldn't tell them where I was, so I had to really escape, and so I went to England. When I arrived there a little bit, they said to me, "Oh, you have a French passport, and you're wearing saris. India belongs to the British." I said, "Not where I come from. I come from Porchon-Lynch, and it's French India." So they did let me into the country, and I became pretty well known there because eventually I ran out of money, and I had to have my teeth done, and I went to see a dentist, and he said, "I can only work on you if you pay me up front." I said, "Oh, I will." So I paid him all the money I had, except for 1 shilling. And the next morning when I went for my appointment with him, the police were at the door. He was a spy from Italy. And so I didn't get my money back, and now I'm in London with no money and not knowing quite what to do. My English was awful. I spoke English and Hindi. You know, like the British, when they speak English, the Indians speak very much like this, you know. But je faisais exactement la même chose en français. I had the same accent in French because I came from French India. And so in London I got into my first film, which was called The Thief of Bagdad. And I played the part of one of the statues that was all painted gold. And the famous star that was going to be in it couldn't do it because it was affecting her skin. So it didn't matter with me that I didn't speak good English, because I only had to use my long fingernails to sort of do some wonderful movement like this and kill off the Maharaja in the film.
So Tao was the golden idol in the Thief of Bagdad. So that was her first movie. And so Tao, in London, you arrive, and soon thereafter was the bombing blitz. The Nazis are bombing London, and you are performing in 5 of the top cabarets. And you had some famous friends. So tell us a little bit about Marlene Dietrich.
Marlene Dietrich was also a friend of Noel Coward, who was trying to teach me good English. You know, like I presume that your presumptions are precisely incorrect. I didn't know what the dickens he was talking about, but I was learning to speak English. And she was there, a great person. I knew her during the whole war, and we worked together a lot. Even when I went back to France, I was in, how do you call it? I was a model with all the dress houses in France. And she came in because she was going to appear at the Olympia Theatre, and she wanted a dress for it. But she'd come in from the trenches, and she had mud all over her. And so she came to Lanvin, and she said, I want the dress on Taos. So I learned my first flavor of being elegant, because this woman, when she put on the dress, my goodness, what a difference. So they actually had a party for me for my first film, and I thought if I was very clever and I used a cigarette holder, that I could get away with things. So I started with a cigarette holder and fell down the steps. And I was in tears, and she said, oh, darling, what an entree. I must put that in my next film. So she was very sweet to me. So she was always doing nice things for people. You couldn't ask her or tell her about something. You could be sure that the next day in the post or something, that present would be wrapped up and she would be giving it to you. But she and Bing Crosby really did a lot of work. Not like Bob Hope, who would big shows, but in the trenches itself. She would go in there with him and drive from one place to another. She was absolutely fantastic and fearless.
And you were pretty fearless. And so this is Tao when she was younger. How beautiful. And this is Le Petit Club Français in London. Burgess Meredith, a number of famous people would go to the French club to meet with the cross of Lorraine in the back to show their support of France. And so you talked about being a model. Now, this handsome young man is Tao's first husband, Ivan, who was a Spitfire pilot for the Ile-de-France squadron. And then, of course, Tao. So you mentioned you modeled. And talk about some of the people you modeled for.
Thank you. Only one thing that missed out a little bit is the fact that I felt very bad that I wasn't doing anything for the war. And so I joined General de Gaulle. And this club was where I found my rendezvous and my people where I could get together. So I became part of the French underground in London, going backwards and forwards. I got to know a lot of people there. And at the very beginning of the first squadron that arrived, that escaped to England, was the Ile-de-France. And they were a wonderful group of boys that wanted to wear their own French uniform and show that they were there. We were all big admirers of General de Gaulle. So eventually, in all these clubs, one American used to write a column called Darker London because of the Blitz, of all the bombing that was happening every night. And with me, I suddenly was working in 5 nightclubs because I wasn't scared, so people were following me from one to another. And so he changed his column to, it's no longer Darker London, it's now Lighter London. Since Tao is here, everybody joins her and nobody is afraid. So I got involved.
And so people were following you from one nightclub to the next, and they were the 5 top nightclubs in London. So Tao became quite famous as an actress and a model. And so we're going to fast forward to Hollywood. This is Bob Hope. Tao is in Jean Pateau dress, a glamorous couture. Talk about Hollywood.
Talk about Hollywood. That was still in Europe.
London.
This was still London, and this dress was made. You may have heard of Joy Perfume and Jean Pateau. They made the dress for my Bob Hope show in Hollywood.
Can I share one thing about that? They wanted a model that was elegant enough to wear the dress, and the only model that they requested was Tao.
I did a lot of silly things. I was so silly. I was never scared of anything, and so it really and truly, I had never worked. The only thing I knew how to do in all my nightclubs was do Indian dancing. So I made up all sorts of Indian dancing, and then suddenly the Americans came in and they showed me how to jitterbug. So I learned how to jitterbug, and I put that together as well. And so in London, I learned how to have fun. In fact, the whole of the American Air Force had a big bet that there was a French girl that could outbeat all of them dancing. And I didn't know that they were earning a lot of money from it. They were all having these bets, and it was me. But it was fun, actually. It was worthwhile when you're seeing bombs and everything, and everyone is so upset. That's the time that you must go and give some courage to them. And since I didn't know what being scared was, I wasn't really anything special. I just went and did what I wanted to do in my life until I could go back to France and do some more help. That's all.
So then you were fearless and a daredevil pretty much, but in Hollywood, tell us about Marilyn Monroe. You encountered so many people, Clark Gable, Spencer Tracy, all of these famous people, Elizabeth Taylor. Tao was in a lot of movies, and so talk about your encounter here in this article with Marilyn Monroe.
And all of this jumping around is a little bit scary for me, so I bless you for listening to me, because it gets all mixed up. Actually, when I first arrived in Hollywood, in France, before that, I had been voted the girl with the longest legs in Europe. And when I got under contract to MGM, they spent 2 years trying to tell us that American girls had longer legs than me, but they couldn't find anybody. The only person who came near was Sid Charisse, but she was 2 inches taller than me, and her legs were still only the length of mine, so I still beat her. But I got to Hollywood, and right away the press came along, and they interviewed me, and of course I was sure I would mess it all up. But they asked me a sort of, what did I think of actresses, and I thought I had a lot to learn from them. But they went and put in the paper that Marilyn Monroe had just come back from Japan, and that I had said that American girls had no sex appeal. In Hollywood, it all talks about sex. And I didn't know what they had said. And I was very, very upset when they showed me that photo, with the photo of her as well, was in every newspaper. And I would never have talked against anybody. Well, she got on the phone, she found my telephone number and got on the phone to me and told me, Tao, don't worry. You don't have to be upset. as long as you're in the news, you're going to be famous. So she was a very sweet person, and most people didn't realize how extraordinary she really was.
So as long as you're in the paper, you will be famous. And so let's fast forward quite a bit. Tao had many spiritual teachers, and some of the great teachers, Patabi Joyce and B.K.S. Iyengar, the Maharishi. And I'm going to fast forward a little bit, because you're going to have to read the book, because we can't cover her entire life. And so I'm going to go to yoga, a little bit about yoga. So this is many years later, and this is actually in France. And Tao started doing yoga retreats later on. Talk about what yoga really means to you.
I think yoga means one thing in the whole world, that with every breath we take, within us is the oneness that we should all get together and be one and alone with the whole world. We spend so much time telling everybody something different. I feel that the same thing that happened a long time ago was the people who were having in Chicago a big religious how do you call it? Not content, yes. Any case, they were all fighting each other as to whose religion was the best. And this wonderful man who was there,
Swami Vivekananda.
Yes, Swami Vivekananda, who actually an incredible man. He walked in and said, brothers and sisters of the same God, if you want to go to the top of the mountain, you don't have to change your religion. All paths lead you there. And so this was one of my beliefs in actually getting involved with yoga. And when Indra Devi and I were we went 400 of us, Yoga for Peace to Israel. And when I was there, who do I see again from when I was a little girl? Indra Devi. And she asked me, what are you doing in films? Why are you not teaching yoga? So I said, but I don't know yoga well enough, not good enough. And she said, nonsense, Tao, go and teach pure yoga. You know it better than anyone. Because I was always working for 17 years with Iyengar and also with Patabi Joyce and with the Maharaja of Mysore, who sponsored all of them. So I had a sort of varied idea of yoga, but I wanted to be good so that I could pass on to my students what I believed in. And I go back to this oneness of getting together, because with every heartbeat that you have, you are in touch with the melody of life. The melody of the soul within you is in everyone in this room. Every breath you take, everyone in this room never argues about, we all breathe. And it's across the whole world. And so if this is oneness is within us, and why? He said, brothers and sisters of the same God, truth is one. Sages call it by many names. I believe that. And I feel that yoga is one of the paths that lead us in the right direction, where we can all be together. So I love yoga. When I wake up in the morning and I listen to my heart, I know that I'm opening up the path to my inner self. And all the power in the universe is right inside of me. So there's nothing I can't do. It is the doer, and I am the instrument. And so I try to pass that on. And through yoga, I'm sometimes able to do that because I've been teaching around the world. Even in Moscow, two years ago, I was in Moscow. And I teach every year. I take all my students to India and take them all over the place. And I climb Machu Picchu with my other students to show them that even at the top of the world, you can feel that oneness with everything, with the atmosphere, with the whole of life. It's right there and right inside of us.
So I have to ask, well, yes, please, please. So at the very young age of 87, you decided to start competitive ballroom dancing. Tell us about why you love dance.
It's easy to say. Everybody loves dancing, but it wasn't that. I had a teacher's training, a yoga teacher's training going on, and it was snowing. Nobody was there. None of them turned up. And I'd hired the Fred Astaire studio of dance, and their people had not turned up either. So they asked me, do you dance? I said, I love to dance, but I don't know anything really about it. But I intend to go to Argentina and dance the tango before I die. So they said to me, why don't you start tonight? So I did. And so she said, I was 87. Just know nothing's impossible. I never believe in procrastination. I don't procrastinate. I put whatever I want to do, go and do it. Don't just sit around thinking about it. Don't put it off till tomorrow, because tomorrow never comes. 1 minute after midnight, it's already today. So what's the point? Not getting anywhere. So whatever I do now, I intend, and when they talk about, oh, well, you're getting old, Tao, I think that's ridiculous. I look at all of the beautiful trees around me. They're hundreds of years old. And you know something? That even when they look as if they're dying each winter, they're not. They're recycling themselves. So they teach me the same lesson. I'm trying to recycle myself every winter and get ready for the spring and dance my way through the rest of life. Feel it.
So,
I just want to tell you one thing. I have a very silly idea, and it starts off like this. I was in Jamaica, and I've been using this terminology for a very long time, that, you know, don't put off today. Don't. Go and do everything you want to do. And so don't wake up in the morning thinking of all the things that you have to do, because you will materialize them. So I decided that I had to find a way of getting past that. So I started this. Every morning when I get up, I say to myself, this is going to be the best day of my life. No verb, I can't do this, can't do that. Canning is something, is canning fruit and vegetable. The verb is to be able. So go and do it, and know that nothing's impossible. So that was last Christmas. In April, I went back to teach in Jamaica. And when in this big park, there were close to 100 people. And they started to chant. Tao says, this is going to be the best day of our lives. And so everybody around joined in, and people came in from all around me. And the best day, what's going to happen? I said, just know something good is happening, and it will.
So I have one more question, and then I want to open up for questions from the audience. So you have, this picture was taken in Jamaica just a few months ago, and look at the glisten and the gleam in Tao's eyes. Tao's eyes are timeless. And so you have been known to say, at 97 years young, in my head, I'm still in my 20s, and I have no intention of ever growing up. So my question is, what's the secret? What's the secret to energy and vitality? You seem to have something.
No, I don't. I just breathe deeply. And when I talk about this, know that with every breath you take, you're in touch with the power behind the whole universe. So know that whatever you want to go and do materializes. Go and do it. And don't be scared. Don't be scared. I have all these wonderful children, and I just would like to tell you one story that happened to me. I have been teaching little children 3 years old to 5 years old, and 6 years old to 12. And they asked me, Tao, can we sit and ask you questions? And I said yes. So I had 24. We all sat on the floor. And they asked me children's questions. But suddenly one little girl, 6 years old, said to me, Tao, what are you going to do when you retire? I said, I'm not going to retire. She said, oh, goody. But what are you going to do? I said, I'm going to take a flyer myself to the next planet. She said, oh, that makes sense. We've put a man on the moon. We're trying to put people on stars. And when I get to be your age, I'll be able to find you amongst the stars. So you see, that little girl has the right attitude. She was only 6 years old, and her eyes and a sense of seriousness, you know, really wanting to know. I thought, see, I can learn from children still. So I take lots of classes with lots of young children, and I'm the one that has the fun, and I learn from them. They're not really learning from me. I learn from them.
So we are going to take some questions, and then Tao is going to show us a little yoga. So first, are there any questions for Tao? I think, did you scare them? No. Okay, then Tao, will you show us a little yoga? So I know that you want to change a moment. And so would you like to do that? Oops. Oh, yes, please.
Мы хотим сказать от имени «Возраста счастья» огромное спасибо Тао за то, что она приехала к нам, и подарить ей книгу, нашу первую книгу, которая была издана в 2012 году, с которой во многом все началось. Это та книга, в которой есть история и фотографии Тао.
Oh, thank you. Whoops. Sorry.
It's beautiful.
This was in Moscow. That I went a couple of years. There were six pages, so you can.
Ah. That is Tao's signature pose.
I I have a funny story about the peacock. With my students, I took them all to Kerala in South India, and we had some time before the plane took off. So I said, if you come down early, we'll do some yoga before we leave. So I come down by the garden, and I got there before anyone else. And I started to do the peacock. And as I did the peacock, suddenly I heard a shriek of laughter. And I looked up, and nose to nose with me was a peacock that had come right across the whole garden and was looking at me as much as to say, that's not the way to do it. All my students came running, wondering what the dickens had happened to make everyone laugh. And the person who saw it happen is a lawyer in Virginia, and she still tells everyone about the peacock, teaching me to do this real peacock, teach me to do the peacock.
So that shows your connection to nature. And so while we're pulling up a video of Tao, and do you want to go and change your pants, and she will show us some yoga.
Well, you will.
Well, you will join her in some yoga. So.
Excuse me about that. I just think these are not good for you.
She's going to do a quick change. When Tao dances, she has at least 5 dress changes. And she has to have the appropriate dress